Hey y'all, it's Jonathan with Race Kiki with Jonathan Lee. And I had the opportunity, that's a silly way of stating this. I wanted to sit down with my boyfriend, Scott, and discuss our relationship and how we navigate the world as an interracial gay couple and answer that one question that we were asked several weeks ago. Some woman asked us. She looks at us and she says, "Well, how does this work? You're a black activist and he's very white." This is our explanation for it, so drink it up and stick to the end. We're going to talk about our amazing t-shirts that I really, really want you all to walk around and luxuriate in. Oh, and remember, we can't fix a problem we're afraid to talk about. You know what that problem is? Racism. So let's talk about it.
I'm a little nervous. Can you tell?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Um, hey,
I
Scott
don't know
Lilly.
why.
Welcome to Race
Hi.
Kiki with Jonathan Lee.
Oh. Yeah, it's cute. Thank you for having me, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here. Longtime fan, first time caller. Live from the other room. It's funny is this I can hear your laugh through the wall half a
Oh,
beat before I'm hearing it through my
I
earphones.
know,
It's
I
great.
know. The logical thing would have been for us to do this in the same room, but I feel like it's going to be a more interesting conversation by us having this conversation in different rooms of our
Mm-hmm.
apartment. Um,
Mm-hmm. And you know, it keeps the consistency. The showrunners will
yeah,
be happy.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for you, Scott, my beautiful, beautiful other half. I'm never going to call you my better half because that would take
Mm-hmm.
my shine away. And
I get
we
that.
all know I'm very shiny.
I call you my better half all the time,
No,
but I'm
no,
working on changing
no,
that.
no. I am your other half.
You are my other half. You are my
So,
other half.
when did you learn about race?
Um, well, that's my favorite question. You heard kind of a version of this when we were down in New Bern this
Mm-hmm.
past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like most middle class white kids of my generation,
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall a specific sit down and talk. I don't recall a specific lesson in school or, you know, like the sex talk where mommy and daddy sat me down and explained like, okay, so some people, you know, have different color skin and that is, you know, whatever it is. It was that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was born in 85. So I was in the middle of that sort of what? We're a post-gender society. We're a post-racial society. If we say it doesn't matter enough, then it won't.
Well, we weren't in a post-gender society, but yeah, post-racial.
We
It was
also
that.
weren't ever in a post-racial society either, but
Yeah, it was the
you,
I don't see color in
that
the
was the one.
1980s. Yeah, I don't
Well, it
see
was
color.
the right thing to do is to not see color because everyone is equal, and other sort of just general enough vagaries that it could kind of pacify without having to do the work.
Usually every time that I don't see color, it's coming from a white perspective where what
Yeah.
that usually means is I don't see I'm choosing not to see the world through your perspective. I'm only seeing it through mine.
What's kind of weird is it sounds like it's saying treat them as if they're white,
Yeah.
which is kind of problematic.
Yeah.
On top of it just being a problematic statement. But I digress. So it wasn't really a lesson like that. It was more through observation,
Hmm.
bit by bit. The most specific example I remember of a racial distinction early on was growing up in Asheboro, North Carolina. We moved there. God, Sam was born in '89, so it was either around there or early '90.
Mhm.
Sometime around that time. I forget who was in office at that specific moment. Um, but I remember we had in Asheboro, North Carolina, there was North Asheboro and South Asheboro. We had Fayetteville Street kind of ran between, and
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
very much the which neighborhood do you live in? There was, do you live in the South Fayetteville area or do you live in the North Fayetteville area? And I remember understanding that um, North North Fayetteville was where all the uh, we'll say Hispanic Latinx people. That was not the word used at the time, but there was very much a that was the neighborhood where these people lived, and this is the neighborhood where those people lived.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this neighborhood was poor and dirty, and that's where the crime happened because and this neighborhood is where you want to move to because it's the cookie cutter houses, and everyone there is, you know, um, and it was that sort of thing. It was the little bits of, when you were in high school, you wanted to go to North Fayetteville because that was the cool part of town because that's rough over there.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and just sort of equating that with um, this influx of people, an influx of demographic,
But it
moving
was
to a
never,
specific neighborhood.
yeah, but it was never directly said. Like it was never directly because I met your parents. They're wonderful people.
Hmm. Oh
But
yeah, my parents are incredible.
I couldn't imagine your parents saying, Scott, stay away from this or stay away from that. But what I do understand is these or at least I tell me if I'm wrong. Um the bad part of town, all of this was reaffirmed, if you will, by the news that you're seeing, the police presence in that particular area. Is that how you're
Yeah, I mean, I gotta
okay?
much like the race conversation, sort of the same with like um, the sexual orientation conversations and a lot of things. I had two very different pocket worlds to uh, absorb from.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know my parents. For those who don't, both of my parents were behavioral psychologists. I grew up in a very unconditionally loving, supportive, and openly communicative space.
Y'all, hold on. I mean this with all the perfect respect it is intended. You have that quintessential beautiful after school special family where everybody like comes together, rallies, and supports little Scotty when he wants to decorate an entire theater and peacock drawing. So your parents rally around and support their quirky little kid because
Y'all should be so lucky as to have parents with
I
mine. But
honestly did not believe families like yours existed. Seriously.
I I know I won the cosmic lottery, being born into from loving and supportive parents like that. I
Hmm.
also know that my parents were able to be as supportive as they were because of um, their position in a white middle class space. Not saying that they didn't work hard to get there, but particularly as it relates to race, that does, I my parents could put me in dance class when I wanted
Hmm.
to be in dance class
Hmm.
because they had we had the opportunities and privileges afforded to us to be able to afford to do that.
Yes.
When little Scotty decided one day he wanted to quit quit the track team to go be in musical theater camp, it wasn't a problem. And again, that's also because we had the means in which to do that. But my parents were all, I never felt that I couldn't come to them with any sort of taboo question
Mm-hmm.
that they wouldn't be able to, even if they didn't have the answers. I'm not saying that they therapized me my entire upbringing. It wasn't like that. But it was a sort of uh, listening and empathy were things that I learned as foundations in my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very lucky that my parents had the education and training as professionals as well as parents to be able to approach more complicated conversations, like what's it like having a queer kid,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in a very sissy, and I say sissy with a CIS, environment, or conversations like race and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So it was a more, my education on race, early education on race, was much more uh, cherry picking my own little tidbits.
Okay.
My parents were always, uh, at least, approaching things from a very, well, let's look at the scope things. The other pocket that I had access to at the time was, the rest of the community, my school, my classmates, where the cool places is to hang out versus, those dirty people, or insert whatever here. How lazy so and so's are, or how what they say about blah blah blahs.
But
The
making
whole,
all of those statements based on TV shows, based on the news, based
yeah.
on antiquated stories that their parents told them. I actually want to bring it forward a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I want to talk about because I tell this story a lot, but I've told it only from my side of the taco stand.
Okay.
Um, very, very, very early on in our courtship, after I think it was after you got back from your summer away. Now, if you don't know about Scott and I's very early on courtship, y'all, it is so freaking romantic. It's one of my favorite stories. I'll tell you the early story before I go into this racist taco story. But that's what
Oh
I want
yes,
to.
that story.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
figure out what the racist taco.
That's a good
Yeah.
awakening. Yeah.
So when Scott and I met, we met on one of these apps. You know the apps. We met on Scruff, and I like to tell the joke we met on Scruff, and neither one of us are scruffy. And we sent some messages, and we met on April Fool's Day.
Easter Sunday as well that year.
Also Easter Sunday. And I walked over to his apartment and I was like, well, let's meet this fella. Because I had been dating, casually. I didn't have any expectations. I opened up the door and this beautiful human was on the other side. And I was like, oh, how curious. We go inside of the apartment and we sit on his floor, on the floor of his living room. Why do we sit on the floor? Because we're weirdos, apparently.
I'm not just going to have a stranger I invited over off of the internet app on my phone directly sitting on my bed. I am a lady. You can come over to my apartment, stranger, but we're going to sit on the floor like gentlemen.
And we talked.
Anyway,
Now we talked for 4.5 hours.
yeah, it was a
Um,
work day. I had to go to work later that
yeah.
afternoon.
Now he was speaking in an English accent at that particular time, but that's a completely different story. Um, Completely different story.
Yeah, you got to subscribe for that one. It's a long
I walk into
one.
the train and I give him a kiss on the cheek because I'm a gentleman. And he gives me a kiss on the lips because he is brazen, a brazen hussy. Anyway, I
You're
was like,
welcome.
okay, well, I'll text you later, or he'll text me later, something like that. We walk away. He texts me 10 minutes later, yo. Then he texts me 15 minutes later, yo, I'm at work. It's going to be a long day. Then he kept texting. Then I kept texting back. I was like, oh, curious. Let's see how this goes. He kept texting, and I text, and I text, and he texts. And then we had 7 dates.
In 7 consecutive days. Yes, we did. Hmm. I think I
On,
finally held your hand around date 5 or 6.
well,
Ah.
courtship. But then he went
Mhm.
away 6 weeks later. And
For like 2.5 months.
we wrote to each other every single day.
It was gross and adorable. It was very old school, previous century courtship.
He was still
My
speaking in
darling,
the
dearest one, here I am trapped doing theater in the state of Michigan. Lovely weather, lovely people. I'm so lonely. And all that stuff. Yeah.
so we
Our
when he
dating was weird. Our dating was weird.
it was
We corresponded for an entire summer after what was it, like 3 or 4
uh,
tempestuous early weeks,
hmm hmm
passionate romance and such, and then
yes, and we're all
I'm
like, we're
going
just gonna
away.
keep it
I'll
light and breezy.
casually text you
Yeah.
every single day, every
Every
night
single day, every
before we
single
go to
night.
bed. Yeah.
It was very sweet.
Um,
Okay, so cut to us all loved up, booed up in that early courtship. We go to, should I drop the name? No, I shouldn't drop the name.
it was after I got back.
Yeah, it was after you
I'm
got
pretty
back.
sure it was after I got back because the weather was starting to turn. We were trying to get in those last good dog days of summer by
Yes.
trying out. Where else do you go when you live in Harlem but to a pretentious, boozy artisan taco joint?
On 150th Street and
Mm-hmm.
Broadway, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Comment if you want a link to the Yelp thing. No, that's me.
That's mean. Anyway, so we go into this taco place, and it's like some a table of black folks are sitting out on the patio, and there's
Like
this,
kids.
yeah, kids having a good time because it was probably late fall or something, just having a good time, drinking those trash ass margaritas. And they were rowdy as children are. And we're standing there, we're engrossed in this early courtship conversation. Well, at that point, we were already in love. Anyway, so we're like talking, and we walk into this restaurant. We're all like, we're waiting, but we're in the middle of a conversation. We're like 3 minutes pass, then 6 minutes pass, and then the guy who was bussing the tables, the only Latin fella in the room.
Oh yeah, you didn't paint the landscape of the setup yet.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
you've
Paint the
got you've
picture.
got the you got the table of kids outside as an indoor outdoor space.
Yes,
You
yes,
got
yes.
those kids outside on the like out on the deck, and then
Hmm
we go in,
hmm
and there's the again, this is a taco joint in
hmm
Harlem, right?
hmm
So you
hmm
got the one busboy,
hmm Bus
um,
man. It was a
busman,
bus. Yes,
bus human.
yes, bus human.
You had
Yes,
the busser,
yes.
natural brunette,
Hmm hmm
and then you've got the bartender. We'll call her a floor manager, him a
hmm
floor manager,
hmm
pronouns
hmm
loosey
hmm
goosey.
Pronoun.
The wait staff,
Hmm
and all of the tables there, sans
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
white
What?
with a hard H white.
hmm hmm hmm
Continue.
And the tables were all a mess. Like they had just finished a lunch rush, but there was no one in the room except for a table of like two or three. There's two or three tables filled with people. And you and I are still standing. We're we're talking. Then this busser looks up at us and he says, "Do you guys need a seat?" Yes, that would be great. He sits us down at a dirty table. "I'll be right back," he says. And we sat there and we talked. But we're in the middle of a
Mhm.
conversation.
Oh yeah, whatever you were talking about, I'm sure I was very interested.
Then Jake, the waiter.
We'll call her Jake.
No, I reread the review. Her name was Jake.
Oh, his name was Jake?
Yes,
Looks
I
like a
just
Jake.
reread the review. So Jake
Okay.
Jake comes slinking over to swishing over to the table. And Jake looks directly at you
Mm-hmm.
and says, "Oh, it looks like you guys have already made your order. Is there anything else?" And you say, "No, this table hasn't been bussed yet, and these menus were here before we got here." Ah, he like wipes the table off. He wipes the table off. Then he
Mm.
like drops down some menus and he walks away. I was like, curious. He comes back a couple minutes later. Then he looks directly at you and says, "What do you want?" You're like,
I'll have a margarita and something
yeah, I'll take a
or
margarita,
whatever.
want some guacamole, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, "Oh,
Okay.
I'll have a margarita
And
too."
he turned to start walking away.
Yes.
I gave him my order and he's like, okay, turned and started walking away. And baby, would you like something?
I would like a margarita. But he didn't
Hmm.
look at me. He looked directly at you
Not once.
and he walks away. We make our orders for those trash ass tacos.
Hmm.
And
But even
I'm
then, when he came back to take our orders for food, he only looked and he only spoke at me.
yes.
And like, was it once like something you ordered and then it's like he didn't hear you and then I said the same thing and he heard me for some
Yes.
reason?
Yes.
I don't know. It was all something, but I didn't notice any of that happening until midway through the meal when you pointed it out. You said you notice he doesn't like notice that I exist. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't talk to me or anything like that at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I
But
said, oh,
you also remember as we were sitting there waiting for the margaritas, the bartender
which
started,
were
yeah,
so by the way.
they were not very
They
delicious.
were not.
The bartender started yelling at the kids who were out on the
Mhm.
patio. "I'm
Oh
gonna
yes,
fuck them up. I'm gonna fuck them up.
yes,
Fuck
something was
those."
happening,
Yeah. And
but
then
again, they were just out being kids on the
drinking
deck.
margaritas, giving you money.
But I
They were
know I
giving you money.
I know that the energy was distinctively different between the outdoor space and the indoor space. And again, after you started pointing things out to me and I started being more aware of the room and noticing the differences of placement of people and where certain people are sitting and where others aren't, and who's seeming to have a real problem with people just being there. And
I'm going to tell you where I brought it up. When they brought those runny ass tacos,
trash ass,
those trash ass
dirty
tacos,
ass, nasty ass tacos.
when they brought those trash ass tacos over to our table,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at you and I was like, "We need silverware."
Oh yeah, because that's not something they had given us yet, obviously.
So then Jake slinks over and he says, "You're like, Jake, can we get some silverware?" Jake then reaches over my
in front
plate,
of your face,
put
hit
his
in the
armpit
nose.
hovering over my tacos,
Uh-huh.
grabs silverware, and then drops it.
Like Mike drops it. She was salty that day.
And
That's Jake from Buddhist Tacos.
and and so I look at you, and you were in the middle of your story.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I said, "You're in love with this young man. How black am I going to have to get at this particular moment?"
It's a question you ask yourself a lot.
I do. It's a constant conversation that happens in my head. And most of the time, I choose correctly.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular situation, it was an opportunity. Yeah, you were kind of ghostly there for a second. Did
It
you
felt
close?
appropriate for the story, but I've drawn the shades in my workspace, and now I feel like you can see me. I'm sorry. Continue.
I said to myself, okay, so this is a perfect opportunity for me to show my new boyfriend what life could possibly be like in getting involved in this interracial relationship, because you had not been in one before, to my knowledge.
Yes, and is yes and an option?
Well, with
Side
clarification,
story.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had dated someone before in North Carolina of mixed parentage, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But his was a very specific situation because he existed in a predominantly all-white space
Mm-hmm.
with his all-white mother, and had a lot of uh, personal questions that he was asking himself, that I think at the time we were dating, that I think he was not very he was
Well, you can't unpack his journey.
yeah I'm not there to speak for him, but it for you and I think it directly yes. My first relationship of any consequence where this particular thing is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It blew my mind the other week when that lady asked, well, how does this work? Oh, you remember that? And we're like,
Okay, no, we have to give a little context.
one story before another. We're never gonna finish anything. Wait,
we were
finish.
wait,
Cake from Buddhist Taco.
okay.
Our we'll call it our first date back in the city.
The reason why I brought it up at that particular time was I said to myself, well, if I act an absolute fool, which is in my right to do, because I had been absolutely disrespected by this trash ass person that I'm actually paying to do something for me. I'm giving you money.
Right?
If this is how society works, and I'm actively giving you money and you act this way, how fucking dare you?
Did we tip?
We tip
we haven't even
because we're
gotten to
not
the
garbage
payment story.
humans.
Yeah.
So I said, I want you to take a drink in how many black people are inside this building. And you took a look around, and then you said, uh-huh. I was like, I want you to take a look at how many black people are outside. And I also want you to take a look at the quality of these tacos in comparison to the fucking neighborhood that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
We are in fucking Hamilton Heights in the middle of a goddamn Dominican neighborhood. And you're going to serve me some artisan
Made by
tacos.
Chet Bread and Stan in the back.
Get out. Get the fuck out of here.
Right. It was the food was disappointing itself. The service was also terrible. But that moment that you're talking about when you asked me to just sort of take a moment and observe. You know me, I like to talk a lot in dates. It's involved in a story, but
Or you're still pitching woo.
yeah, I was aggressively pitching woo with you at that time. Aggressively. I was so into you, but
Why are you speaking in past tense?
because you're terrible. You're terrible. Oh my god, it's like living with a really expensive made to order cat. Wonderful. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I love it so much. But and you know, because I've said it since those early days, is one of my favorite things about you. What I think, like, you know, is your point of view, your perspective, the way you see and interact with the world is so unique to you, and something I find immeasurably valuable in educating my own life and expanding my own perspective, on top of just like yours is a beautiful, colorful movie I can't stop watching.
Oh my
But
gosh, shut up. And then Jill Scott is playing in my ear too. Man.
welcome.
Oh, hi,
But all of that to
Marcus. Stop
say,
it. Back to work.
all of that is to say, babe, that part of your perspective and part of your point of view is informed by being a Black man in America, which is founded on white supremacy. 98.9999 spaces that you walk into are, my cousins.
Yeah.
And that was not something that I had really considered at that to that extent until that moment. I remember that being a check-in point of, oh right, there's more going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And me as a thespian should have been able to scan the room and read all of that in the first place. But again, that's not ever an issue that I had to grow up learning to check where the exits are, check who's in charge, check, what you were saying, how Black will you have to be in any sort of
How
situation.
many of my people
Whatever
are in
that
this
means.
room so
Mhm.
I can figure out if shit pops off.
Mhm.
If shit pops off.
But I do remember that in recent memory being a very big moment of discovery.
Now, let's finish this particular story because my favorite part is
Okay.
the end.
Because
My
now comes the
favorite
check,
part.
right?
No, that's not my favorite. But
Oh.
so, um, the check, he finally drops the check
Mhm.
after he comes back to you and asks a
If there's anything else I
disrespectful,
need.
yes, is there anything else you need? And then he comes and drops the check. Now, you drop your card, I drop my card, and I was like, watch this. And I pick up the check and I hold it up just like this.
Were we going Dutch that night?
Yeah, we were.
Oh, tacky.
Tacky. Well, we
Couldn't
didn't.
have been that early in courtship if we were already, well, any day after that 7 consecutive week,
Blah
practically.
blah. Anyway,
Blah.
yeah, blah. And
So you're
so
holding the check
I'm
up
holding the check up. I'm holding the check up. I'm
for a
holding the
minute.
check up. And he walks
2.
by. He loops. He loops. He loops. He loops. I drop the check.
For like 5 minutes, I saw you getting because after we had that discussion mid-meal, I was just kind of seeing the energy get hotter and hotter and hotter as it. You kept your cool. You were very classy.
I decided to go Michelle Obama Black.
You always go Michelle Obama.
Not always.
Until you have to go.
There are times. Now,
oh.
I dropped the check. Then I was like, grab the check. You didn't even lift your
I
arm.
put my hand on it.
And here his ass is. Here she is coming over. Can I get you something else?
No, Jake, from self-harm. I don't.
He signed. I mean, he brings it back. I sign. You sign, and we look at each other, and we're all like, "Now, should we tip?" And we did.
Because we're not garbage people.
Yes.
You knew New York, or just anyone who's watching anywhere, don't be a garbage person. Tip. Even if they spit in your food.
No,
don't encourage
foolishness.
As someone who has been a restaurant worker,
and that was the only reason why because at the time you were actively waitressing.
The barest of minimums.
You were actively waitressing.
Respect you for being a breathing human tip, but nothing else.
I took that into consideration because I said to myself, now I'm sitting in front of this human who is a waiter, and I love him. So I can't disrespect his current survival job by not tipping this trash ass waiter. But I'm not going to give him more money than I think he deserves, because I usually will tip 22% because that's the appropriate thing to tip for a waiter who's making $3 an hour. Mm-hmm. However, we may have tipped just 10%. Bare minimum.
I would have absolutely respected you had you not left anything. I mean, I get, again, my theologies on tipping are only my own.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't want to tell anyone what to do, but you should tip your waiters. But you know, for that whole situation, I would have totally understood had you not. But you did, and that was also something that I understood and found. Classy. You're classy.
So how has being in our relationship changed your perspective? Or has it changed your perspective?
How has
that's
it
a great question.
Not. How has it changed my perspective?
Yeah. What an open-ended question that is. I should drink some water.
Well, I think I would be lying if I didn't say that I also occasionally suffered from the syndrome that plagues most of people who look like me in this country, which is just sort of an intentional or unintentional ignorance of, even when we say things like walk a mile in another person's shoes, you know, you gotta breathe the same air, whatever those things are, you know, who are you envisioning in your head when someone says that to you? Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, as a training in acting for half of my career and stuff, you know, those are things that you know, you think you understand empathy, you think you are able to connect with other things, but you know, everybody has their blind spots, especially when you are existing in a country, in a government, in a system, in a what have you, that supports just kind of staying in your lane, etc. Mm-hmm. It has certainly opened my perspective a lot broader in terms of just considering situations outside of my own. Not everyone grew up in a neighborhood like mine. Not everyone was afforded the same opportunities and things like me. Mm-hmm. Not everyone looks at the police and sees a friend. You know, it's sometimes it's the little things that shake your world the most. I know that in the wake of this sort of the pandemic and the shutdown and the quarantines and the you know, the I can't breathe movement and all of this stuff that has been picking up steam in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that I would not be as submersed in the conversation had I not have firsthand connection with the source material. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm just
I mean, I know, and
jostling with you.
it sounds terrible, but I feel like I know that is absolutely 100% true, because again, another, we are just we exist in a space, and I say we, like, white people live in a space where we kind of don't, conversations that make us comfortable or uncomfortable, we can
You
tend to
can,
avoid.
yeah, you can just leave,
Yeah, we can just
because
leave.
every time we, Black folks,
Mm-hmm.
Indigenous folks, people of color,
Mm-hmm.
bring up race, racism around white people,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a short circuit that happens in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's filled with a lot of apologia, is filled with a lot of devil's
My God, can I
advocates.
just can I just say on behalf of all of us to all of you,
Have you gotten that before? The I'm so sorry
Bitch, what's that gonna do for
look
me?
with the heavy hair on one
Oh
side.
my God. What was it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I also try not to be that person too.
Because that does
Because you
that.
can go too far, you can try too hard
What kind of
in the wrong way.
what am I gonna do with that? I'm not gonna do anything. Now
Apologies don't pay the bills.
you're putting
Yeah.
your guilt onto me to navigate, and I'm walking around here with, now you're putting
And
more white
somehow
people
that
bullshit
still
on top
ends
of
up
me.
being more about my feelings than about yours.
Yeah, that's more about
That's
you than it's about me.
yeah.
That has
Yeah.
nothing to do with me. And I, when we were sitting here and we watched George Floyd be murdered on television, sitting
Mhm.
right next to one another, and it hit me in such a way because I saw myself in George Floyd.
Yeah, y'all are like practically the same age.
Yeah, I just saw I
Or
saw
similar
myself.
season, yeah.
Yeah, a similar season. Um, and it affected me in such a way. And then cut to that weekend trip we took, and sitting
Which one?
the one to Asbury.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go too deeply into that story because I'm telling that story live
Mm-hmm.
at this For the Generations Project on June 5th in New
Plug.
York City. It's not a plug, it's just casual conversation. You'll be
Right.
there. I might wear this t-shirt that we designed together.
It's a cute
Anyway,
t-shirt you
I know.
designed.
So
Look
is
at
yours.
mine.
Hold
It's
up, you
appropriate.
designed that one too.
Fragile masculinities. It's nice.
Oh, handle it. It's so fragile.
I know.
Uh,
We should place more orders and try to sell them. I think we could
well,
do it.
maybe if anyone
But
wants one,
that's a side
that's a
conversation.
side conversation
Talk about it.
altogether. Anyway, what was I talking about?
Our trip to
Oh,
Asbury.
yeah. So when I'm sitting across the table and I'm having this conversation with what I thought were allies, white
Mhm.
queer allies, and some of the vitriol that was flying so casually out of their mouths, it was dumbfounding me. And I'm
It's
thinking,
so crazy to think college educated. You can get by in this world with a college education and still not be able to,
Well, it's
metaphorically
because we
tie our
don't talk
shoes.
about
Mhm.
race. We don't talk about racism. We
Well, and I think,
educate from an Anglo perspective.
Well,
It's
and the
just,
education system itself is kind of a mess, and
yeah.
that's partly I think is sort of how I my early thoughts about race was. It's sort of like, well, I learned these facts. I
Mm-hmm,
learned it was
mm-hmm,
bad. I
mm-hmm,
learned you're
mm-hmm,
not supposed to be.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everyone's the same, words and stuff. And so I passed the test, right? Great. I passed the test. Like everything else I learned in school, I took it to take a test and I can forget it.
And I can
Not
forget it. But
or
also,
just assume that the bit of information I'm sitting on is enough.
mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm.
was more
But
that was more my thing.
and then you're getting all of this perspective where most of your friends, most of your circle of influence look like you. And their perspective is a lived experience from the perspective of others that look like them.
Mm-hmm. It was
Like,
interesting working in the theater because that's a very um, philosophically liberal space. That's where all the if you feel outcast, if you feel different, if you feel other, the theater, the performing arts has quite a bit of appeal to that. And I worked with a lot of actors with a lot of different personal backstories and stuff like that from a lot of different angles. But I also learned, you pick up on things of like, well, basically, because I'm this, my types are this, 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 and this, and those are the only things I'm allowed to go out for, and people don't take me seriously if I try to do something else. Or, I'm very excited that I have the opportunity to work on this material. Shame it's written by someone who has no lived experience of that, but it's something. You pick up these things from people you work with, and you go, well, that doesn't sound right.
that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. This whole argument that's going on with AEA right now, with this whole sort of it feels like too much of a conversation about something that doesn't need yeah, I don't need you to justify
Wait,
your
what are you talking about?
sexual misconduct and racial profiling. I'm spearlining into another sense of direction. Oh my God.
Oh, sweet Jesus. I'm the
Um,
one who veers off. How dare you?
well, you can't look. I've been watching these for a while. You are the host. It is your responsibility to keep me
Oh
on
yeah,
track.
to guide this ship.
I'm just here to talk about myself and plug shameless self promotions the whole time
Shameless
around.
self-promotion. I
And
have
I
a
also wanted
question.
to see how long my hair is looking on camera and if I need to get it cut like soon. I think the answer
Mm,
is yes.
sure. I have a
Ask me something.
question.
Yes.
What did going to Mississippi feel like for you?
Oh, that time we went to Mississippi to meet your family.
To meet my
Well, the
relation.
branches that I had not met yet. That was pretty fine actually. Interesting enough, going to Mississippi was less stressful in that regard, I think. And what you're implying than it was like to Florida or the Carolinas. um, no, the trip to Mississippi was um, it was a mixed bag of emotions, but none of them were bad.
Okay.
A mixed bag of emotions, but none of them were bad. Um,
Do you think, because you remember that episode of Mixedish that we watched where the dad was trying to be all friends with the black folks and they were doing
mhm.
their may I speak with your manager voice?
Oh yes, code switching or
That's
what?
not that's not a fair that's not a fair statement. That's not a fair statement
Oh, are
because
you trying to compare that episode
yeah,
to?
because and now that
No,
I'm
well,
thinking about no, no, let
here's what
me
I went into
oh,
Mississippi with.
tell
The
me.
with the frame of mind was this is somebody I care a great deal about and want to
Hmm,
have in my
hmm,
life for as
hmm,
long as I can feasibly keep him
hmm,
down.
hmm,
And this is his family who are responsible for the creation of this. Um,
hmm.
so and as a Southern gentleman myself, I am all about proper first introductions and things like that.
You did bring a gift.
But also, since we decided, very, 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 very early hour 3 into our conversation that, sort of open clarity and communication and sincerity was kind of the give all to any situation. I don't think I changed my behavior too much or adapted myself or our relationship in any way to your parents. I know that because of the activities that we did, going to the Fork in the Road, going to the African American History Museum, that it was my job to listen and observe. That was most of my job, especially when we were at the African at the History Museum, when we walked through, because that was the time when you're like, okay, and this is my mom and this is my niece, we're going over here and you're with my mom. Have a first conversation as we walk through the history of what it was like, what the Black experience was throughout the history of Mississippi, and go. Which was only a little intimidating.
It was
I will
only a little
confess that
intimidating.
in hindsight, but again, I think most of it was just taking it all in, taking the museum in, but also taking your family in, taking you with your family in, and just being there. Just being there and listening, I think, is about 98% of the work of that.
It was watching you drink all of that in was beautiful. It was
some of it was really difficult. There are moments I think that museum is kind of cool because they have it's sort of done in like a honeycomb style, where there's this sort of atrium in the center that's full of these sort of lounge seats and benches, and all of the different exhibits are sort of branched out from that, so that at any point in time you always have this place to come back to sit,
to catch your,
to reflect, to collect your thoughts, to catch your breath, to do whatever you need to do, and then continue on. And I will admit I took advantage of that once or twice. Especially that one after that one hallway that you walk down where it had the names of like, and this is a giant like 4-walled column of just list of names of people that were lynched in between these 2 years, and this is another column of things or something like that.
As you step up, the light comes on and it starts saying very disrespectful.
Oh yeah, they had those sensor things on the floor where as you walk, there'd just be a random like slamming door sound behind you, and someone would shout,
"You gonna buy some, boy?"
Yeah. Get out of here. We don't, all of those, the old classic standards.
All the classics.
Yeah, it was a very submersive, interactual kind of thing. But I did get to talk to your mom about some of the light stuff too, not just the heavy things. She's
my mother's glorious.
Beautiful woman inside and out.
Glorious.
And that woman loves you.
Well, how could you not? I'm absolutely delightful. Kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not that self-absorbed.
You're also very high maintenance.
Asshole.
But I understand that completely. This is why we keep breaking vacuum cleaners. Anyway, there were some, I will not say that entire experience down in Mississippi was easy. There were certainly some moments of difficulty for me. But I went in with the intention of not allowing myself a moment to pull back and shy away from. The only thing that I absolutely could not do was the fork in the road thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't,
You
and I
couldn't.
don't think I will. Maybe we'll see when we go back to say hi to everybody.
We'll see. Well,
But
with this
that was very real.
now, in comparison, when we went to, before I open this conversation, I will buffer it with your family I adore.
My family is great.
Your family I
Family
adore.
is the fucking
What I'm
bee's knees.
speaking about is the towns in which we visited and the reception in which we've received. Was that a good was that good? I don't want
Yeah,
I
I
do
think
not
you
want your sister to call me and be yelling and screaming saying that I've done something, because
No,
I love them. I think
that was
everything
a
is delightful.
perfect disclaimer. Continue.
Thank you. Um as the world is falling apart, we go down to Florida in September for your sister's wedding in
Florida.
come on, tell me the city. Florida.
Jacksonville?
Yeah, went to Jacksonville.
Jacksonville adjacent.
Yes,
Florida.
went to the Jacksonville area, and
Here's the thing. Can I tell you something that's interesting that as we're talking about it, I'm thinking it. And I don't know if it's because it's sort of my first one. If it's just being two dudes in an interracial queer relationship, or what, but I feel like regardless of where we are, we're always met with something. It's a certain something, and it's not always the same. In New York is New York, and it's our own little wonderland, but I feel like there are places we go to and we're a little like a novelty. Oh look, it's like a walking, like a promotional ad for an upcoming vote or something like that.
I told you exactly what we are. We're peacocks.
Unintentionally so.
Unintentionally. And
I mean we are effortlessly glamorous and beautiful always, but we're not trying to make a political statement just by walking down the street.
Right. We're just
but sometimes it feels
groceries.
like that. I know in Mississippi, I definitely got that novelty feel.
Yes. I felt like I was on Rainbow Tour.
We were,
like, oh, hey, y'all.
And the people that we met were lovely.
But they were a little too lovely.
They were very excited because it looked like Will and Grace had showed up for the first time in the 90s. Like they didn't know. They were just very eager to show us how okay they were with us.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That is a really, 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 really
Everyone was really excited to see these two. Oh my God, y'all look so cute, and you have your outfits and your hair, and it's just so pretty. And did you know that my cousin's gay? Like all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
They didn't. That's not the right accent.
Why she's from Long Island while in Mississippi?
I don't know. That's not the right accent.
She was there, and she was lovely. Her service was excellent. But yeah, there was definitely kind of that. Whereas when we went down to Florida, as we were passing through certain communities of people, that certain something was a very different energy.
It was more along the lines of "Don't stay here after dark."
It was hostile, but it wasn't aggressively so. It was that kind of icy, unwelcome. Y'all from the South know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you here.
So nice to meet you.
And where are you from? Well, welcome.
Well,
don't get too comfortable. Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
How long are you staying? Where are you staying?
Now, again, to disclaimer, this is not about my sister's wedding at all. My family took absolutely great care of us, but the thing about that was that was a bubble. That was our little. That was our space with our friends and our loved ones and friends of friends who knew us, who knew what we were about, and it wasn't a thing. Asbury was a different energy. It was also hostile, which I found interesting for it being my first time in Asbury,
Mhm.
because here I've always heard Asbury is, that's where the liberal elite go to like vacation when they're not, booty popping in Fire Island or wherever the wealthy gays go.
Mhm.
I thought
Mhm.
it was supposed to be a land of culture and progressive thoughts. Now I
Right.
know that this is America, and every third or fourth uh, house you pass down the street still has a Trump sign on it. But I expected more from Asbury.
I expected more from
Asbury
Fire
was not
Island.
Asbury. Asbury wasn't.
Yeah, I know, right? But finish that.
I've
Finish
been to Fire
Asbury.
Island for one time, and that is the only time I need to go.
Only time. Never going back. Go on.
But yeah, as Asbury wasn't, it wasn't. I mean, one or two scowling, angry, "What are you doing here?" faces, but it was more akin to that, just like, "Are you sure y'all are in the right place?"
Are you
Because
sure you need to be here?
that
Are
you,
you sure?
yeah, you
Are
know
you
the
sure?
the gay beach with all the stuff is like a mile down that way, right? Like y'all aren't, but why are they holding
And
hands in
the
public? Like it was just
the
weird.
interesting thing is, I had been to Asbury a couple of times before as a single gal,
Mm-hmm.
and
Did you
as
get
a
the same
sing,
stuff?
it was different. It was more along the lines of sup. It was that same fetish shit that I've been talking about
Mm-hmm.
forever. It's that. It's like I love to play with you in the nighttime, but I dare not see you in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh
So
yes.
that was my experience
Mm-hmm.
prior to going down with you. And if the one thing that I have always been is high maintenance, and I'm very aware of it.
That's not the right word to use.
It isn't. It isn't. I just have an excellent sense of taste. And I value my particular taste highest of them all. And I
You
mean
are a
that with all the
particular.
jokes, all the
I
jokes.
know. I know what you do. I know. I know. This is every conversation we have on the couch. Um, you're beautiful. You're perfect. You look like Evangelista. You are a very particular kind of peacockian unicorn, and those are not easy to keep. Domesticated.
But I wouldn't my concern was that when I decided to be black as hell, I just don't I'm so tired of white people's foolishness. I've had it up to here. I'm over it. And when we were driving back from that foolishness in Asbury, um, and it was just you and I in our apartment, and I said, "Babe, I can't do this shit anymore. I can't. I've had it. I've had it with putting up with all of this shit. I can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about let's open up the Pandora's box and let's just start talking about race." And when I changed my career yet again to start doing this fantastic podcast, I didn't talk to you about that.
About starting the podcast?
About
Yeah, you
changing my
did.
career.
Yeah, you did.
Did I?
We
Did we talk about
absolutely
that?
did.
Oh,
Yes,
good.
because since we've dated, this is what, year 3, year 4? No, no, no. No, no, no.
Three. We're in our third year.
This is the third year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've, well, not career changes, but you've worked for a few different companies, and I've seen the continuing thread, the problematic thread of who you were working for, who was signing your checks, where that money was coming from, and where it was going back to, and it was not making you happy.
It was not making me
It
happy.
was not
And it
making
was
you happy.
and I felt I felt like it was adding to the toxicity of the world,
It certainly wasn't
helping.
contributing to any meaningful conversation. Looks are, looks and style and how you present yourself to the world is very important, but
And
what's the
it's very
point?
subjective.
Yeah. It is subjective, but also what's the point if you're not using your platform, if you're not using your space, if you're not using your peacock, what have you?
I know. Otherwise, I can just stand around and look pretty with absolutely no thoughts. How is that helping?
And you know what? Someone else can make some CEO on Wall Street a suit that can fit him however he wants it to fit, or however his tanned side piece thing wants him to look with whatever thing.
But again,
Just
there's
fine.
nothing. I find such joy in that former career, but it's not
Yeah.
what I've chosen to do with the rest of my life. I feel like if we don't continue, if we don't start talking about race, we're never gonna handle it. We're never gonna fix anything. We're never
Mhm.
going to uncover the anti-racist that's inside of all of us. That I truly believe if we just open up a conversation and say, hey, when did you learn about race?
Mhm.
When, who taught you that? It's like, oh, what? Okay, your nana went to school. Okay, and nothing against your nana, but let's unpack what was going on in your nana's universe when
Mhm.
she learned those facts. Now, if we
Come on,
move,
this is your psychiatry background coming out, psychology background coming out.
I'm just saying, if we understand the context in which this bullshit that we've been told comes
Mhm.
from, and you
Mhm.
unpack the the intersectionality all wrapped around it,
Mhm.
and any intelligent human will be able to say, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Oh yeah, I absolutely 100% agree. I think that, it's America has some trauma that we haven't reckoned with, because racism, like any other, emotional, psychological lie that you've turned into reality, it can't be addressed and resolved unless you talk about it.
Unless you
Unless you
talk about it.
unless you know that some classes of thought in psychology, they talk about the root,
Mm-hmm.
finding the root of a
Mm-hmm.
thing.
You have to.
Yeah, which I think my dad's more into. The Wait, I'm trying to remember, because we talked about this at dinner, how there's like some shrinks think there's like a root cause to thing, and other things like, well, there's one, but there's also a multitudinous amount of others.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
and I believe, there's never one
There's
reason
never
behind
one
anything.
cause of anything.
um but there are roots to why this country is in this state now. And I think that we are absolutely in a transitional period in life. It's an exciting
Wherever,
time. I can choose to be very stressed and freaked out by it, or I
or
can choose to be a part of it.
be
I
an
I'm
active participant in
an
it.
active participant in it, and I think what this this that you are doing right now on this platform, and I tell you this all the time, and I'm going to try to keep it like cheesy, sappy, and sweet short.
Short.
Yeah, but it is important work. It is important work, and you talk about it, and I talk about it, and then the people you talk about it, and they talk about it with their people, and their people talk about it, and it's you know
We
it's
talk about
open
everything
communication.
else. Seriously, we talk about everything else. And
Mhm.
some of the things
We
we
talk
talk
about
about
real
will
housewives of some county that you're never going to live in. We talk about, designer handbag
clothes that you
dogs.
will never be able to afford. And more importantly,
Uh-huh.
why would you want to?
Yeah, we talk about
We
drag
have
race and all of
closets.
these other unnecessary things. You could spend 15 minutes asking yourself some honest questions and doing your research. And
Yeah.
it's not always, and that doesn't always mean asking your Black friend to explain racism to you.
Because your Black friend, fuck
It's
all
not
that.
their
That's
job
not their
to
fucking
teach you
job to
job.
teach
It
you shit.
should have been. It should have been
Google's
your.
job.
It should have been your education growing up. But since we kind of screwed that up, it's kind of become. It's up to us to educate ourselves, which is very unfortunate since we live in a world where the full capacity of human knowledge exists in the pocket of.
It's like right here.
All the time.
Right here.
24/7.
You can find anything you want.
And I know these are
cross-reference it.
Well, and I know that yeah, exactly. These are complicated times of confusing. Is it real facts or is it not facts? But you know, if you're getting it from the Inquirer or from a post on someone's Facebook, you might want to do some follow-up background checks.
Like Googling. I know that there's a lot of things, a lot of places, but
you got to research some of these, and we're doing it right now with the elections coming up. You got to research some of these people up for election, and I'm not talking about the big ones in Congress and stuff. I'm talking about the little ones like in city council and mayor and stuff like that. The people on the ground floor that make that instigate the policy changes, that if they pick up steam, then the pundits up there in Washington say, oh, okay, if is that making us money, well, then we'll sign along stuff. You got to do that.
And see, that makes an excellent segue for what you brought up earlier. We were at a very particular event for city council candidate for the city council.
9th district.
9th district, Miss Sheba Simpson.
Yeah, you had her on 2 weeks ago, last week?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
When is this air?
2 weeks ago. This is going up tomorrow.
Oh, sweet.
I know, isn't that cute? Quick turnaround.
World. Hello from the past.
And as we were leaving, I was introduced to a young lady who was a Harlem legend jazz star. We're sitting, we're chatting, and you were standing. And I was like, hello, my name is Jonathan. I host a podcast named Race Kiki with Jonathan Lee. I unpack racism. I just, I want to learn about racism from people's different perspectives. And
you were doing the elevator pitch.
Yeah, I was telling her, this is what I do. I talk about racism. I talk about it in a serious sense.
She had been,
so forth.
She had done some activist work back in the day.
Yeah, she brought tours of people to Harlem for jazz nights and what have you.
Oh, wow.
And so as we're chatting, I said, oh, and this is my other half, my partner, Scott. And she looks at you, and she looks at me. She looks back at you, and she looks at me, and she says, how does this work?
Had anyone asked us that before? I don't think so.
No one had ever asked that question before.
Well, that's just it. It's open communication.
I said to her, I was like, listen, we can't fix a problem we're afraid to talk about. We talk about racism all the time. We talk about race all the time. We look at everything through every person's perspective that we know. Uh-oh, what happened? Did she fall?
My computer became unplugged and she's telling me that a low battery, so I have to plug her in. So give me 2 awkward seconds.
By the way, this is our living room. We're not vain at all.
I'm coming to you live from the Lilly room of Chez Lilly in Harlem. Also known as Doodles by Scott's portrait studio.
Yes.
Get into it.
And I'm in the bedroom, the bed chamber of Chez Lilly, or
also known as the Ice Palace.
It is. It's like 43 degrees in here.
Has it warmed up at all, or are you still?
It's really chilly. I feel like when you sleep in the cold, you don't age.
Well, the permafrost is giving you great highlights there on your cheekbones. It's nice.
Well, no, that's the lighting. Anyway, Is there anything you would like to plug before we close up, my darling?
Oh God, are we there already?
Are we?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just chatting with you. I feel like we're doing a weird experiment. Like it's weird just talking with you the way we talk all the time about the things we talk about all the time in two different
Yeah.
rooms.
So,
It's
but
kind of
when
fun.
it's, I think that I've been in a lot of interracial relationships in my life. Um,
Mhm.
one of I was actually dating this fella when I was in Colorado. Um, nice guy, big old muscly fella, bald head, shoulders, black fella.
Kind of
And
time.
do you know that my bitch ass friends said to me, "Oh my God, Jonathan, seeing you with a black guy is like you're interracial dating."
What does that even mean?
That's what I said. I was like,
What
what the
does that
fuck does
even
that even mean?
mean?
We don't even think of you as black anymore.
What color were these friends of yours? Doesn't matter, but I feel like I know.
And so
That
when I morphed into to all black all day, just like I'm done with all this foolishness. For like 3 seconds, I was like, well, oh no, he's okay, okay, he's not going anywhere. Okay, I could calm down. Okay, 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 okay. But it was like a brief second that I thought that it was too much for you.
for me,
And hmm,
for me,
yeah.
because of the interracial dating aspect.
I don't know. I thought, look, the world was on
Oh.
fire, and I was all like, "What the hell?" But I don't. Wait, that's not actually true. I've never doubted our connection or our relationship.
Well,
Or
here's what I will say.
ooh, tell me.
I know that I am a constant work in progress. I know that this conversation, like all conversations involving me and, well, you, I know, separately or together, are never really finished. I know
Hmm.
that there's still more work to do. There's more information to gather, and on top of that, it's always shifting and evolving. The world
Yes.
today is not the same as the world yesterday, and people make choices and things move and policies change, and some asshole does something stupid, and it's always a constant, like ephemerally
You're
transmorphificating
constantly, yes,
situation.
you're
Yeah.
always evolving. It's a
And I
constant
think,
evolution.
well, that is the world. That is the way the world appears to me to work and
Hmm.
function. And
Hmm.
I don't feel like I can be an active participant in it unless I do the same.
I absolutely agree with you.
I mean, there are people that find things that work for them, and they slide into a routine, and the world doesn't change out there, and we see what happens when that does. We see what that happens with individuals. We see how that happens with institutions.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't work like that. I wouldn't want to work like that. I think that's part of what makes this work. I think that's part of what makes my relationship with this ever evolving, constantly on fire world work. Um,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's what works in my craft too.
And it's
So,
what works. Well, you
but I
said
know that
all of the
that's
right
my
things.
responsibility to to put in that work. It's not the responsibility of you.
Nope.
And because even if we weren't in whether you're romantically involved with someone, or just an acquaintance, or family relation, or whatever the situation
Or
is.
you care about
um
human beings, or you care about humanity.
Yeah, you
I
can't,
don't I don't believe that you need an association with someone to see their humanity.
you don't.
It helps, but
You don't.
um
And I think that for a lot of us, it takes us until we have a personal connection with something for it to make an impact on us.
that's unfortunate though.
It is,
It is
you know.
absolutely unfortunate, and I don't remember a point in my life where that hasn't been the case.
I mean, we're a
Because
very we yeah.
we spend so much time othering people.
Mm-hmm.
We spend so much time trying to dictate the way other people live their lives
Mm-hmm.
and never focus on trying to live ours better.
Mm, I think we're
You
just a
don't believe
very
that?
yes, and I think we're a very
Okay,
I
okay,
think
that's
we're a
fair.
very self-centered society in the sense of we are, our society functions on us focusing on me and mine first, everyone else
Mm-hmm.
second.
Mm-hmm.
Everything revolves around how does this affect me? Everything
Yeah.
revolves around, it's capitalism. So I have to, what is my monetary value? Where how does the fires in California affect me here in New York? It doesn't. Well, then who gives a shit? Like that. It's
But
that
if
kind of
but the
mentality.
fact of the matter is, if you think about it, um, if you think about how do those fires in California affect me, you can find a
Mhm.
way where it does, because the fires in California affect
Mhm.
the air quality. The air quality of this fucking planet
Mhm.
affects you. So
Yes.
that
Yeah, and
easily can find a
it's
way to affect you.
unfortunate
How does
that
the
I
homeless
think
affect me? That's super easy too. How did they get homeless?
all these
That's
people
super
getting
easy too.
so mad about that make me mad and in kind. Um,
Yeah.
but that's a
And
whole other thing. But
with
yeah, I think that
I think
we keep
that
talking
this
over each other
whole
because we're
I
trying to
know.
prove a point. You never let me
Oh.
finish my
Oh,
points.
I'm sorry. Finish your point, Queen.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that I forgot it already now. So you done talking mess. Um, Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just very excited.
I know you're a terrible host.
I know. I
I'm
should
kidding.
quit
That's a
now.
joke. No, don't quit.
No, don't quit.
Getting interesting now. No, I think the point I was trying to make was I think Western civilization idolizes self-interest and self-concern.
Yes.
And that's what it promotes. That's what we learn in school. That's what we learn on the playground.
That's an
That's what our parents
indoctrination.
teach you. Yes.
No,
Yeah.
that you're just being indoctrinated into this lie. Into you're being indoctrinated to be a
Mm-hmm.
cog in a machine.
Yeah. Yeah, no one wants the working class to have any sort of capacity for critical thought. That's going to affect that's going to shake things up.
It's gonna make people
Hmm.
start questioning.
I know. That's why you
It's
pit, you pit the poor against each other, you pit the unions against the small businesses, and you do all these things while the fat cat's up there just signing the checks. But
and
I don't
laugh.
want to wrap this up sounding like a conspiracy
It's
theory
not a
site.
conspiracy. It's
But
just the way the world
it's
works.
just the system is not broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to. And I think it's weird that we're still trying to fix our dishwasher with a 200-year-old
Screwdriver.
instruction manual. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
So let's talk about what's new now. What are we doing?
what do
For
you mean?
instance, I know that
On
was such
what
a weird
on what
question.
level? Because a lot.
Okay, so tell me how you're using your voice now.
So since the global shutdown last year,
Mm-hmm.
and in my head I'm sort of thinking of it as like a BC AD and
Yeah,
like a post-pandemic
quarantines.
or what have you. Yeah, the post-quarantines.
Mhm.
I have switched more into the visual graphic arts lane since
Mhm.
theater has
Mhm.
shut down.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, freelance, fine commission character and graphic artist, Doodles by Scott on Instagram and YouTube and others. Shameless self-promotion. I know you asked me
He's
that
amazing.
minutes
I
ago,
know. You're
but
amazing.
you see how I found around. But yeah, I have been working on a lot of disparate creative endeavors with a lot of phenomenally diverse companies. Diverse in every sense of the word, if you will. But I think that the the work that I've been taking, especially when it comes to the storytelling work, the animation projects, the comic book things, these sort of stories with all of these creative companies that we are putting out into the world, that I am able to lend the aspects of my toolbox towards. I make sure that I am behind 100% behind what that story has to say. And how do I say this without sounding like a weird self-hating creepy person? But I don't think that I don't think we need another heteronormative white male hero savior magical destiny child storyline
Got
kind of
you.
thing out there.
Yeah.
So though I have been presented with opportunities to tell the same story that I've heard 47 times over again, but this time it's blah blah blah. I'm focusing on collaborating with companies and individuals, entrepreneurs who are specifically it's too many words, forward thinking, I guess, in terms of what their product has. I've worked with
You've
a
been
lot of
you've been creating a lot of really amazing, really progressive, really collaborative work that has been so awe-inspiring. Your
thank
work
you.
is amazing.
I've always felt very much a collaborator.
Hmm.
And I think that this is not necessarily the time where my voice should be the one out in front, and I believe that. But I don't think that that means that I can't that I don't have things to offer. But I think
Right.
I'm just being much more particular about what I am committing to creatively. Um, Same thing, career wise too. I don't need, you know,
I get it.
money is money. It comes and goes. Mama will provide. It's going to be, all
But
that
can we
stuff is
drink
fine.
in this tank you're wearing,
Oh, yes.
please? Y'all get into this tank.
You see, it says fragile masculinity. Well, masculinity. I say masculinity because I'm fancy, but yeah.
And
Whether it's t-shirt designs like yours truly and mine.
these are originals from a collaboration between Race Kiki
We've
and
printed a
Doodles
few of
Pie.
them, so leave a comment if you think you might be interested in perchance purchasing one. We may put together like a stock and send them out. You think you'd like an anti-racism t-shirt
Why
just
not?
for shites and gaggles and to peeve off extended family member branches this upcoming Thanksgiving? Think about it.
Yeah, no, not.
But yeah, I
Summer's
know
coming up.
I that's how I am choosing to
To use your voice.
yeah, I mean, like you said, I am like you. I am trying to be an active participant in this world that is now. And what are the tools that I can use to help shape in whatever small capacity that I can and influence things towards the world that I would like to see.
And we will do it all with a laugh, with a
We're pretty damn funny
fabulous joke.
sometimes.
We'll we're never self-deprecating.
Try not to be, but I'm always just kind of
Oh,
there.
in perfect lighting with the perfect cascading princely hair that I've seen you adjust into 3 or 7 fabulous different positions.
You caught me on a good day, and it feels great. It's very soft, so I keep playing with it.
Well, let's stop this conversation so I can run my fingers through it. Y'all, thank you very much for this conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. I should be talking to you. Baby, thank you
yeah.
so much for having this chat with me.
Thank you for this is fun. I've never listened in because I usually have my, I'm in the other room doing other stuff while you're working. But it's really cool to like participate. I hope you get something decent out of this.
Well, no, I'm going to post the whole thing. And then the next time we see you on camera is when we finally get that interracial couple that we're looking for, because I want to know what other couples like us go through.
Yeah, I wanna know what other people's answer are to that question that shook us.
How does this work?
How does it work?
It's working quite beautifully because we've decided to live as openly and honestly with the state of the world and not ignore it. Face it head on and talk about everything as it happens in real time.
See, that's the responsible answer. That's the adult businesswoman answer.
It's true. That's how we do it.
It works well because we're magical unicorn people.
But the way we're magical unicorn people is talking about it in real time, not using coded language, talking about exactly what's happening from all perspectives.
Yeah. I don't think
with
miscommunication or lack of communication is ever going to be a problem between you and me.
No.
Never. Never.
Okay, bye. I love you. I'll see you.
I love you.
Like
I'll see you in
3 seconds.
like 30 seconds. Right. Mwah.